I present myself before the Grand Assembly. Kalen Vex, representative of the Vexian people. Greetings to all the counselors. Welcome, representative. Spoke the head of the council with a calm and powerful voice that seemed to resonate from the very structure of the chamber itself. You may explain the matter of your intervention. He was a massive Gravok, a mammalian race with thick, leathery dark skin, short black fur covering their back and limbs, and two formidable horns on the top of his head, one positioned slightly behind the other. He was seated on one of the dozens of floating balconies that composed the heart of the council, the chamber where matters of galactic importance were communicated, reviewed, and decided. And on each of these balconies, another species council was looking down at the representatives standing on the central podium. Their gaze is a mixture of curiosity, expectation, and professional detachment. Kalen bowed low, a gesture of respect that was both graceful and precise. She cleared her throat, a soft, melodic sound, and continued. I come today to present to you another report regarding our integration to the Council as a new species. More precisely, our duties as soon-to-be full members. Since the beginning of the integration procedure 5 cycles ago, I have come many times in front of you, as had been requested, and as we were happy to oblige, to give account of our willingness and eagerness to join the Council. I did so through presentations of actions befitting a Council member, through changes of our laws to fit the ones of Council, and through commercial deals strengthening the bonds between us and many other species having a seat in this room. The Vexian spoke with a clear and almost chanting voice, her pale, almost luminous skin covered by the austere gray robes of her diplomatic office. A faint blue light, a biological manifestation of her thoughts and emotions, shone softly through the delicate tendrils that framed the back of her head. Her 4 upper limbs, 2 primary and 2 smaller, more delicate manipulators, moved slowly and deliberately, accompanying her speech with an elegant, practiced choreography. She was clearly used to these interactions, and today she was particularly eager in her tone and gesture. And today it is with great pleasure that I present to you the result of our very first and very successful first contact operation. A few surprised whispers and some quite impressed exclamations rose from the balconies. First contacts were not numerous throughout the galaxy's long history of interplanetary travel. There was perhaps one every few hundred cycles or so, and for a species that had decided only recently to ask for admission to the Council, it was exceptional to encounter such an opportunity. Because if a first contact was successful, it would be proof of their good faith about the Council's core values of pacifism and respectful exploration. Other species, those outside the Council's influence, would most of the time submit a newly discovered planet by force, integrating its resources into their own empire. But the Council considered it more beneficial on both economic and political levels to help the species develop and eventually become close allies. This would, in turn, add a new world to the Council's commercial networks, and, of course, the spread of the Council's philosophy was never a bad thing. Such was the excitement of Kalen Vex when she pursued her explanations, speaking louder to be heard by all on top of the gossiping voices. The very first contact was made by one of our long-range exploration teams, charged with the discovery of potential future mining systems. They received a faint radio transmission, an archaic beacon signal, originating from Sector 4 to 33.56913. Our team traced it back to its source planet at Galactic Location A, 59B42, C86. The full report of the early exchanges with this planet and its representatives will be sent to you after my intervention, but suffice it to say that we were able to peacefully establish our very first contact, the first both for them and for us in different ways. She saw pleased expressions and positive body language amongst the counselors, and she almost couldn't keep to herself a proud giggle as she heard a few discussions taking place around her. Their admission to the Council was yet to be completely accepted. A few diplomatic details and procedural hurdles were still preventing them from confirming their rightfulness. But with this discovery, all of those minor issues would be forgotten immediately, and the rise of the Vexians amongst the Council's economic powers would finally begin. So she continued, her voice filled with confidence. Everything was already played in her head, and all that would follow were only details to better describe their goodwill and capability. After a few weeks of careful study, we were able to sufficiently understand their culture, enough to be able to begin the initiation process, as is asked from all council members. They were still not able to realize faster-than-light travel on their own. They had only just discovered cryostasis and were researching primitive void gate technology. To our knowledge, not successfully. So from our transportation network, we offer them ownership of a few Starlight Weavers amongst our own network throughout council territory. From our defense systems, we offer them shield generators and the means to construct them to defend themselves against pirates and hostile species. From our economy, we offer them favorable commercial treaties and a significant investment fund to allow them to begin their ascension amongst us more developed species. And from our diplomacy, we offer them embassies, participation access to some of our public operations, and partnership over the soon-to-be mining world of sectors 4 to 33.56. They have accepted our gifts gratefully, and several of their local months later, they are now in the process of becoming a small but complete interplanetary species, thanks to our patronage. She concluded with a graceful movement of her head, a bow that was both final and inviting, happy with herself and how she managed to present the amazing success of this hushed sponsorship operation. Hushed because they wanted to do the big reveal precisely this day, to make the best possible impression on the whole council. And judging by the nodding and affirmative exclamations that could be heard here and there, it had been truly effective. Elder Gravok himself, the head of the council, seemed somehow impressed as he readjusted his massive frame on his seat. And pray, could you present us our new sentient allies? What is their name? What do they look like? His deep voice asked, almost with a pressing tone. Of course, honored counselor. She activated a giant holographic projection behind her with a flick of her wrist, while theatrically gesturing to it. Please meet the Terrans. And there she stood, the projection coming to life, presenting the new being in full detail. A bipedal creature, tall for its build, with a relatively hairless body save for the top of its head. It wore simple, unadorned clothing and had a look of cautious wonder on its face. Kaylin had her head bowed. Her self-pleased expression kept to herself as she waited for the applause and exclamation that would follow this conclusion to her perfect presentation of this brilliant feat, but those reactions she never got. Instead, the first thing she heard as the projection stabilized was a tired voice belonging to Elder Gravok. Not again. He sighed heavily, a sound like a rock slide, as other counselors and diplomats erupted on the other balconies. Really? This has to be a joke. They did it again. How is that even possible? We should have known this session was a waste of time. I am going to quit. I swear I am going to quit this time. Where are they anyway? Yeah, make the punk speak. Dozens of species in the council. Millions of years of collective evolution. I do not know how many books have been written and read, and we still are dumb enough to fall for it this time. They are not going to get away with it. Does anyone have ethanol? I need ethanol or something stronger. What is happening? Said loudly Kalen Vex, at a complete loss. Elder Gravok had slouched on his seat, his head gone backwards, his powerful limbs hanging by his side, when he heard the Vexian's cry. He gripped the armrest of his chair to pull himself straighter and let out another long sigh before raising his voice above the cacophony. What is happening, Representative Vex, is that you have been had, if you pardon my language. The assembly quieted down a bit, most of the counselors now exhibiting annoyed, angry, or just profoundly tired looks. But maybe someone here, continued Gravok, would be more able to explain to you how. The end of the sentence took an accusatory tone as he turned his massive head to look at a specific balcony. The Vexian followed his eyes to find sitting on this balcony, at a lower level where she had not looked before, were Terrans. Ah! Her face displayed the utmost disarray. How is this possible? The Terrans were 4 in number, just like most other species delegations. 2 counselors, usually 1 to 3 per species, and probably a data manager and a multi-species sociologist. From their looks, they were not distant relatives or roughly similar bipeds to the ones the Vexians had encountered. No, they were exactly the same. And besides, they were clearly not shocked or annoyed like the others. They were desperately and very visibly trying to keep themselves from laughing. Not only is it possible, answered the head of council, seeing the Terrans were not going to, but you are not even the first to be in that specific position, Representative Vex. The Terrans have been a part of this council for many cycles ago, even before your species' exploration team entered in contact with the council. But in that case, who did we discover? Said the Vexian, forgetting all protocol or etiquette in her confusion. I guess I will have to explain from the start. I am sorry to the ones present here who know these events as well as I do, but will be a good reminder to the ones who do not. He threw a last irritated look at the almost laughing Terrans and cleared his throat. Many cycles ago, I was still an assistant for the counselor of my species. We were not head of the council at the time. I remember we discovered the Terrans. It was one of their outer colonies. I do not remember which one. We established the first contact successfully, and just like you, we gave them gifts. The initiation has always been the motto of the council. So, we gave them knowledge, funds, commercial treaties, weaponry, and transportation technology. Just like you, it did not cost too much for my species, since they were only gifts for a smaller empire. The Terrans did not have that many worlds colonized according to what we assessed. And as is the objective of the initiation, we knew we would get greater benefits on the long run by making them allies. They accepted our gifts gratefully and were surprisingly quick to adapt to those changes. We did not think much of it at the time and spent the next cycles continuing our exploration and helping them develop. Just like nowadays, the council at the time only held assemblies once every few cycles, except for extraordinary events, which there were none. And so, we finally went to the assembly to present to others the results of our exploration, as well as our new friends, the Terrans. Little did we know, we were not the only ones. When the first counselor, I do not remember which species, presented the Terrans, many were confused. One by one, the counselors started to claim they also discovered a bipedal species called Terrans. We could not understand. Did the others steal the discovery? Was that a misunderstanding? Were they cousins from distant stars and forgotten common origins? As we talked, we found out that out of the dozens of species composing the council, more than half of us had discovered the Terrans, and so more than half of us had gifted them with all sorts of things. It took us another couple of cycles to investigate and find out the truth, because when we asked the Terrans, Gravok said while briefly looking irritatingly toward them, they only gave us evasive responses and facetious arguments. Through cross-referencing star charts and diplomatic exchanges, we were able to discover that they did this on purpose. When they had their real first contact with their first other species, they already had a few colonies. Obviously, their view of the galaxy and of life evolution changed with this experience, and they went into the common cultural and technological stir that follows a first contact. They were amazed by the gifts they received, even if they were humble for a spacefaring empire, and it took them months of their time to accept what was happening. But once they learned more about the species, and through it, the Council's laws and ways, they familiarized themselves with the first contact procedure, and they found a flaw we did not even think could exist. So they spread themselves and started what we then learned they call the Great Gambit. Honored Counselor. Intervened one of the human counselors, the male one. The other one was female. If I may, I can neither confirm nor deny that all this affair was consciously coordinated by the Terrans. But concerning that specific point of history, the people completely unofficially and out of any government operation or media communication or official speeches, and certainly not addressed like that by any elected citizen, named at the punchline heard round the galaxy. The last part was told so fast it must have been rehearsed. Anyway, Gravok continued, purposely not addressing what the Terran had said. They sent colonist ships on many faraway worlds and constructed small replicas of their societies on those new planets. This process took at least a few cycles to make a planet into a fleshed-out, believable society. And so they poured all their resources into this operation to accelerate it. They sent just as many people as necessary to form believable, but ultimately temporary, societies. And they did not maintain any form of sustained shipment between their primary colonies and the new ones. And so one by one they were discovered by a new species, and they were gifted with treaties, technology, weapons, and diplomatic favors. It was not random. Thanks to the first species they encountered, they managed to learn of the other species and their exploration routes. They obtained through wits and falsely innocent data, request the estimations of each species' exploration route and the date of the next council assembly. With that, They selected the world to settle in so that they would have the time to develop these doppelganger societies just in time to be discovered by the exploration teams of all the empires they could learn of. At the peak of this operation, a fair majority of their population had settled on these phantom colonies just to play their part in this giant act. The civilians were in on it, and these few cycles of outworld life were funded by their governments as a temporary transfer. But intervened the Vexian. How did they manage to settle on this many world so far away? And why did we not detect any form of advanced FTL technology on the world we discovered? I mean the world we encountered. The Terran worlds were densely populated, as it happens sometimes for species still at small-scale colonization. So, this large number of people allowed them to properly populate the phantom colonies. But their only fast-travel tech at the time, at least the one they controlled the best, was the Void Gate technology. You thought they did not achieve it, and it is not a stupid statement. The Terrans create Void Gates like opening an unlocked door by putting a grenade on the handle. It is very unstable, and they always require several dangerous trials and errors. Most of the time, they lose several drones and a lot of energy before being able to maintain a stable enough singularity to let some basic colony ships pass through. Now, of course, they have access to the transportation tech of many species. So, they are as potent as any species in this matter. But during the Great Gambit, this absurd operation, they sent ships out knowing they would not be able to enter in contact with the colony again for many years. Not that risky for the colonists, but surely a lonely time. But it paid off. Several cycles later, thanks to all the treaties and access to knowledge, they made a technological and logistical jump far greater than what a normal first contact would have done. By being fools, we allowed them to gain in diplomatic and economic strength at an incredible rate, and they soon became equals to most species of the Council. By tricking all of us, they skipped the difficulties all of us had to go through to achieve similar treaties with other Council species. Naturally, we confronted them. We asked them to explain themselves in front of the whole Council, and give us the reasons why they thought they could abuse our generosity. They came in front of us, and the only reason they gave was that they misunderstood the law. Head of the Council raised a female Terran in a polite tone. It was not a misunderstanding, but a valid interpretation. Nowhere in the law was it written that first contact and its benefits were only attainable once by a species. Therefore, the actions of the Terrans were not illegal and not without sense. Not that again, groaned Gravok, almost pleading. We had to write an addendum to the law that a new species was to receive the welcoming gifts only once from a Council species. It never occurred to us that we would have to write it, but hesitated Kalen. Are they not doing the exact same thing now? Are they not breaking this new law? Another counselor at an upper level scoffed. Just wait for it, they said, sighing. Not exactly. The female Terran said as a counselor who spoke did a confirming nod. You are not a species of the Council yet, so that law cannot apply to you. Therefore, any first contact between your species and ours can only be considered between our two parties, and in no case in the affairs of the Council. Please just stop, pleaded Gravok, a paw rubbing his massive skull. You are giving me a headache again. The Vexian's train of thoughts was running dry. She stayed there, mouth agape for a few seconds before shaking herself and watching back and forth to the Terrans and the head of the Council. So this is it. They keep what we gave them? She asked, making Gravok shake his head. I am afraid they will. Yes, and if I can give you a piece of advice, do not try to play with words against the Terrans. I strongly think you will be beaten at that game. An eventual legal recourse would probably turn into a nightmare for you. I swear they will be able and willing to declare all individuals of their species as independent pirate crews if it could spare them taxes on commercial exchanges. The Terrans on the balcony had their eyes go wide and looked at each other, the male one speaking to his colleagues. Hey, it is not a bad idea. Actually, yeah, it could work. We just need to no to spare the Gravok. You know what? Note that for later, for posterity it might come handy in the future, said the female Terran to another before they all turned back their attention to the central stage. Kalen Vex, standing awkwardly on it, was looking at them lost before addressing them, not able to contain her questions. But why? Why do this? The male Terran shrugged. If it were to be true that the Great Gambit's consequences were intentional on our part, well, I do not know. A great feat of wits and determination, a proof of adaptability, a risky way to be considered as equals right off the bat. No, I mean, why go all this way now? It was not that great of a cost for us, and it was not that great of a gain for you. And yet you went through all these lengths so far out of your way just to play that trick on us cycles and cycles after you pulled on all these other species. Why? The male Terran grinned, baring his teeth to her in a way that was not a threat, but a display of pure amusement, as his colleagues were trying to contain their laughter. And he said something that never made sense for the Vexian representative. Oh, that is simple, he smiled. Every joke needs a good punchline.